Hello and welcome to the June 17th edition of the Cluster API Provider AWS Office Hours subproject of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. We have a relatively short agenda today, so if there are any items that you want to bring up, please go ahead and add them to the agenda. I'm looking at that in the chat now. So the first item, obviously, we're on a temporary Zoom today due to a conflict with the Minikube office hours. I've already talked to Tim St. Clair, and he's going to work on trying to resolve that scheduling conflict for us. So hopefully we will be back on the normal Zoom next or 2 weeks from now. All right. Next item. We already have a 0.3.0 release out there. There are some issues that people have been having related to the IAM permissions that are set up with Cluster AWS ADM. So we are in need of a 0.3.1 release so that new users have a working release to download and run. There are 2 outstanding PRs that I think are in a good spot for us to go ahead and try to get merged before the 0.3.1 release is cut. But I wanted to see if anybody else had any input on any issues that are in need of addressing or any PRs that we need to try to fast track into that release.
Is this coming from master, Jason?
For the most part, what I was planning on doing was basically backporting everything from master into the release 0.3 branch.
Which 2 PRs were you talking about?
So there's 880 or 833, which is improving the dependency graph, and then 742, which is a older PR that, as far as I can tell, was just pending a LGTM from Nadir. Otherwise, it's got a couple of LGTMs on it right now, and it's already approved.
Oh yeah, that one looked good.
It looks good. I just haven't used Bazel for a while, so I'm not sure. So it's probably fine.
I did test the actual code and it was fine.
Cool. That's good. Good enough then.
Yeah. Everything else that I saw that was sitting out there was in a WIP status, so I figured it's best to hold off on those for now. So unless there's anything else, I'll go ahead and I'll start working on that 0.3.1 release today. All right. Does anybody have any other items to discuss?
So I have an issue with CAPA that it requires 2 broad privileges from AWS users. Like I basically gave a EC2 admin permissions to a guy to try a thing out with Cluster API provider for AWS, and he was not able to create a cluster because of permission issues.
Interesting. Would you be able to file an issue with the errors and the permissions that it was lacking?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So basically, an account had to be created while starting up a cluster with AIM, IAM, and like that is a different story. So yeah, so I already have an account. Like, why do I need another one? So the gist is, if my account already does have pretty much broad permissions to use EC2, why do I need even broader permissions? Yes. So okay, go ahead.
I think I can probably answer that one. So I think the permissions should the permissions in the policies for that user should be the minimal ones required for Kappa, apart from maybe we could do some more stuff tightening up on tags. But yes, you're right. We don't actually need to create the user. It was there for convenience early on, that you could use it instead of your root account. But so I think we shouldn't. I think from the Slack conversation last week, we should definitely make that optional. That's totally reasonable to do. If we have not tightened some of the permissions as much as possible, then we should probably tighten those as well. But we do need some things which are not in EC2, like ELB permissions and some weird IAM ones that grant ELB sufficient permissions to EC2. That makes sense.
Yeah, so ELB permissions, I agree, but again, why do you need the ELB for? Like if everything that you use on your cluster is internal, you don't even need ELB.
We create an ELB for the API server endpoint, ultimately.
All right. So I'll go ahead and create an issue. And so I also would love to know, what does the absolute minimum set of privileges on AWS to be able to successfully run CAPA? And what I mean is, like, how can we tighten it down to an absolute minimum?
So I think what Nadir was saying is we've attempted to do that. And if you look at the policies, they are not wildcarded to everything. So I'll paste the link in Slack here, or in Zoom. So if there is something that you don't think needs to be there, then we can look at getting rid of it. But I'm pretty sure the team has made every attempt so far to scope this down as small as possible.
Thank you.
I would add that the one that is loads and loads of params is actually the AWS cloud provider, not CAPI itself. So we assume that people want to use the AWS cloud provider. So that's granted. And I've opened the issue on their repo saying, hey, we should probably try and minimize this. So I think that's the majority of work that in terms of tightening. There are some like clever stuff we can do with tags potentially as well. But tried as much as possible not to wildcard, just blindly wildcard stuff.
All right. Any other topics? All right. If not, I think we can call it for today. Thank you, everybody.